Well, good evening again. I hate to stop all the fun. Stop having fun. I have to tell my staff this all the time. Stop it. Stop having fun. No, I'm only kidding. I hope you will continue to have fun, but I have been given the duty of delivering an address. So my address is 16926 East Park Drive, Cleveland, Ohio. Just seeing if you're listening. Okay, goody. Thank you. Thank you. The one thing I forgot to do earlier that I want to do now is give the newly certified people one more chance to stand up and rock the house. Get up. Woo! That is right. That's right. Woo! That is right. I wish you could all see what I see. This is a beautiful, beautiful picture, and you all are just gorgeous. I wish you could just come up here one at a time and get to see what I see. You're just wonderful. It's great. I'm not going to give a speech tonight. Thank you. I did give a speech last year. Tonight I'm just going to give some thoughts, and I'm going to keep them short. No, it's not a real speech. You'll see. It's not, because a real speech is totally organized. It has a beginning, middle, and an end. And I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to ramble and tell jokes, and then I'm going to sit down. But they're going to make sure I don't go on too long. All kidding aside, yeah, you clap for them, yeah. All kidding aside, I do want to talk about three things tonight that are very, very important to me, and that I have. What did I want to say to us as a family on the occasion of my waning months as chair, and what have I learned, and what do I hope for us all going forward, and what I want to talk about is what I hope we all have and keep with us is courage, candor, and compassion. And I'm going to start with courage. So I spent much of my life thinking that courage meant I was not afraid. And what I have learned in my older years is that courage means you're terrified and you do it anyway. And so I'm hoping that we all remember that as we go forward. I think this past year with our AAPC colleagues and deciding to consolidate has just been such a wonderful experiment. I've been calling it a clinical trial. I think it's safe to say it was a huge success. It was such a wonderful experience to be part of the conversations and getting to know people, some I knew well, some I didn't. I think it's a wonderful, mysterious act of grace that Terry Canzaneri and I go back 40 years to the same tiny church in Atlanta, Georgia. Our sons are the same age and grew up together in the youth group and are now both in graduate school at Columbia University at the same time. So isn't that weird? But we also, people were worried that you guys are such good friends, you'll be too tolerant of one another. And I'm like, well, you don't know us very well because we are really good at fighting. And I think good friends fight well, and I'll get to that later. But it was fun to be with this group and have us really work through the concerns and the differences and come to a great sense of excitement about the future and just so many possibilities. I'm thrilled that the workshop this afternoon drew 85 people, and that people are excited about the SIP program is so cool, and I'm very hopeful that we're going to have something similar for other folks like doctors and nurses and be spiritually integrated healthcare that these same folks help us draft and write and teach. So there's so much to be excited about. But again, I like the little squirrel or chipmunk or whatever he is because he's like, whoa, 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 you know? And that's how I think I have spent a lot of the last 2 years. That I didn't really realize what I was getting into, and we often don't. And usually most things that are worth doing, I would say you're gonna end up wondering what you got yourself into. So I think courage is an important thing, and I hope that we always choose courage over fear. There's a lot of talk, in our strategic partner talks, there's just so much to be hopeful and excited about. And there's a lot to be worried about. There are a lot of questions. And I hope that we always put our courage ahead of our fear. Because there's so much more, in my mind, to be excited about than to be afraid of. I think I was reading David White's book this afternoon, and I looked in one of the books, and I was looking at the chapter on courage. And I'm paraphrasing him because it's too beautiful to read the whole thing, and I can't do him justice. But what he said in essence is that sometimes we only realize it was courage in retrospect. And isn't that really true? Like we feel like we're just sort of powering through something, and then we think, wow, that really took some nerve. But it just felt hard at the time. So I really liked that. And so to quote one of my favorite theologians, Shakira, thank you. Birds don't just fly, they fall down and get up. Nobody learns without getting it wrong. I also love her line that I'll just keep on making those new mistakes. So as we talk about the future of our organizations going forward, let's be brave and talk about making new mistakes and realize that that's going to happen. It's what we try to teach our students. We try to teach them that it's okay to make errors and that that's how they learn, but then we don't actually treat ourselves as though that's still the case. Wish number 2 is for candor. So candor means that we tell the truth to one another. And it doesn't mean that we're mean. I like this one a lot because in my imagination, the one on the right has just said to his or her friend, several seals have told me that my nose is really big. Do you think my nose is really big? And so the other one is like, well, you're asking me for feedback, but I'm not sure you really want me to tell you the truth, right? So, or on the other hand, the one on the right has said something to the other one about something surprising, like you really shouldn't have worn that to the banquet. And the other one is surprised. So candor isn't about being mean, and I know some of you are going to say, really, Amy, that's coming from you? And I see the irony, believe me. But it is about being willing to talk to each other frankly and honestly about the things we're worried about. And that's been one of the most satisfying parts of the strategic partner conversations, I have to tell you. That's just been so wonderful to have everyone at the table saying, well, we're worried about this, and well, we're worried about that. And everybody's got their own interests and their own concerns about what that will mean. Nobody knows what it will look like, and that's why we're just starting to open this conversation up to the whole family. We're excited about 2020 because we're going to be diving more deeply into the possibilities and how it might look. That is not decided, so do not panic. None of that has been decided. But I think we have to be willing to confront one another. I always think about confrontation, and people think confrontation is just, I'm going to say something really mean to you and then run away. That's not confrontation. When we confront, we put our fronts together. We go face to face, we go heart to heart, and we stay put until we have the relationship is back in order. And I love it when we're able to establish relationships that can tolerate hard questions and difficult things. We want to know what your concerns are, and there's plenty of time. So please, be in contact with anybody in here anybody in leadership. Email us. That's why I'm not giving a lot of details tonight, because it's all online. It's been published. It will be published even again and again. I'm very proud of the transparency of the staff and of the committees and commissions and of how well they're working. But again, I cannot tell you how wonderful it's been to work with these fine folks and to feel just the real collegial warmth. And I would go so far as to say the word love. So we work to be reconciled. And if we make a mistake, we say so. I was going to use an example from work because one of my young chaplains and I got into a pretty serious misunderstanding. And so we were at kind of a standoff for several weeks. She was avoiding me, and I was mad as heck at her. And so finally we sat down together, and she finally said, well, I just think you think I'm a brat, and you know what's best for me. And I said, well, you're half right. I said, I do think you're a brat, but I don't think I know what's best for you. And I said, I think you just think I'm a bitch, and I don't know what I'm doing. And she said, well, and she did not say I was half right. But she thought it. And then she said, well, I'm really sorry for being a brat. And I said, well, thank you. And I'm really sorry for being a bitch. So we went back to being a really good team. And that to me is what candor can be like. Now, you don't have to use ugly words if you don't want to. But that's to me what a symbol of candor. Dennis Kinney and I know, and I mean, you know, everybody knows who's had to work with me that. I'm sorry, what? Okay, thank you. So, number 3 is compassion. Isn't that great? Now, that's obviously photoshopped. However, it really illustrated for me how compassion can get us into very difficult situations. We can take on more than we bargained for. I think this kangaroo was thinking, you know, the poor little guy, you know, and before she knew it, well, you can see what happened. But I think that's what real compassion is. I think we have to stretch, literally and figuratively. I think we have to stretch ourselves. I don't think compassion is about being nice. I've been learning a lot about compassion through my study of cognitively based compassion training out of Emory, and I really cannot place a high enough advertisement for that program. It's been amazing, really. I started in the training just to survive being at the Cleveland Clinic and everything else I had to do, and then I began to be so transformed by it that I really wanted to continue on and become a teacher. And I get the irony of that too, like, get out of my way, I'm a mindfulness teacher, I'm late, you know. I don't look like the typical meditation or compassion or mindfulness teacher. I get it. But the point is, compassion is harder than it looks. It's hard work. And it's not a feeling. It's not a feeling, it's a decision. It's really a decision. And when people talk about compassion fatigue, it really annoys me because I don't think real compassion fatigues. I think pity fatigues and rescuing tendencies fatigue and boring and meaningless work fatigues. There's a lot of things that fatigue us, but I don't think real compassion is one of them. And truthfully, there's a great book coming out tomorrow. How many of you have read about the book called Compassionomics? I'm really excited. It actually literally comes out tomorrow. The authors are, I wrote their names down because they're hard to say, Stephen Trisiak and Anthony Marzarelli. And these guys, one was a physician, an intensivist, who is a hardcore empirical evidence kind of guy, and firmly believed that compassion just was a waste of time and didn't have time for it, and it didn't really help. And then he got a new boss who said, I really want you to study this because the burnout rate is so high. And that's really frightening. I mean, we have 400 physicians a year committing suicide nowadays. They are the highest at risk of any profession. And that's, I have a son who's about to graduate on Monday as a physician, and I'm scared about that. Not for him personally, but for his colleagues, that's how hard it's become. And I don't, you know, that's a really scary statistic. So they began to do, this doctor, he's got a great TED Talk too, if you want to look him up. You can just look in Compassionomics. But he did a meta-analysis of over 1,000 different studies, and then he did 250 articles, 1,000 different, anyway, he did his homework. And he found what I have always kind of instinctively felt, that compassion, in fact, regenerates the person who's giving it when it's really compassion, that it actually feeds us in ways that that empathy even doesn't. Just feeling each other's pain doesn't do us any good. That will actually lead to distress and fatigue. But that active, I want to do something to relieve your suffering, that's what feeds us. And truthfully, it doesn't even have to be, I don't actually need you to feel my pain. I just need you to see it and want to do something about it, personally. So I like that picture of the kangaroo with the baby hippo in her pouch, because she's, she's like, well, now I've got him, and I've got to do something with him. So I think we often have to go beyond what we were comfortable with, and we often get into things we didn't expect. And I think that's part of what it is, too. One of my favorite descriptions of compassion, and why I think it's so relevant, learning it and teaching it is so relevant to us and to what we do, is that compassion is the one thing that every living being needs to survive. I love the baby animals or the baby birds. I mean, they need the care that comes, and you could argue that that's not compassion, but I think it is. But as human beings, every human being needs it. And the Dalai Lama likens it to water. He says water is the one thing that every human life has to have to be sustained. And then he says our religious views and our philosophical views, those are the tea bags that we want to have our particular flavor. So to me, that's such a great image for a truly interfaith kind of movement that we are, and hope are becoming even more, that we're a truly interfaith organization, and we can teach the world what it looks like to respectfully dwell together in this common effort to teach and learn and show compassion, because let's face it, the world is in desperate need of compassion. And we're the ones who can try to heal some of those breaches and not continue to participate in the othering of others, and always looking for where we differ, and always looking for what's wrong, but looking for what we share. And I like that he uses the tea analogy, because he says we can try different teas, but we're all going to have our preferences, and you still have to have water to make the tea. So that's my thoughts tonight. I hope that we remember these three things. I hope that we go forward with courage, with compassion, and with candor, and that we remember them all when we get scared. We talk about our fears, we stretch ourselves a little beyond what we thought we could do, and we go mostly bravely even when we're scared. I want to see us be brave. That's all I got to say. Thanks.